How to raise exception with raise in Python? That is what we are going to understand in this video. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is the next video in the basics of Python series where we are understanding the basics of Python in a step-by-step manner. My name is Mukesh Kala. I am a 4 times UiPath MVP, LinkedIn top voice and a certified solution architect. I have shared my LinkedIn details on the page. Feel free to send me a connection request and I would be happy to be part of your network. In the basics of Python series, we have already seen a lot of topics which includes like how do you install Python, how do you get started, what are arithmetic operation, control structure, manipulating strings, functions, file handlings, and recently we have been discussing a lot about exception handling, right, which is a very critical part of Python. In case you are a beginner and you have absolutely no idea of Python, please refer to the playlist available in the description and you would be able to understand your Python understanding in a step-by-step knowledge. Lastly, in case you are coming to the channel for the first time and you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel to get the next videos in the same playlist. Having said that, let's get started. Okay, so in the previous videos we have been discussing about something which is called exception handling, and today we are going to continue the same and we are going to discuss how do you raise exception with something which is called raise, right? So in case you are directly coming to this video, I would request you to please watch the previous video of exception handling and that will give you the context for this video. Okay, just a quick recap. In the previous session we have seen that what is exception handling and why it is important. So whenever you are writing any program in Python, you can have unexpected situation, you can have a program crash, and whenever there is an exception, we always wanted to give a meaningful message to the user. That is why exception handling was important. Okay, we have seen the basic exception handling is done with something which is called try and except. These are the two keywords which we started with, and then we have seen that how I can utilize the else and the finally block to write a full-fledged I would say program which handles the exception, the code to handle the exception, code to execute if there is no exception, and lastly how and when to use the finally, right? So all of this we have already explained in the previous video. In case you have not seen the previous video, please do refer to the previous videos to get more clarity on these topics. Okay, today in this video we are going to discuss about raising the exception with a raise, right? So this might seem a very small topic, but why I wanted to cover this separately is because this is also known as something which is called the business exception. Okay, what do I mean by that? So till this point we understand that whenever there is a exception which is generated by the program, it can be something like zero divide error, format exception error, file not found error. But when you realize this, all of these exceptions are being generated by the Python program. Now there are some situation, there would be always a situation where you would like to generate the exception yourself, where you would like to stop the program by yourself. Now you might be thinking, Mukesh, are you crazy, right? Why you are saying that a developer would generate an exception? Let me give an example, right? So for example, you are writing a program which is for a bank, and you say that if somebody is trying to, let's say, withdraw an amount of 50,000, we want to stop the program. So in that case you need to have a mechanism to stop the program from executing and give a meaningful message. That means exception handling, right? So I just check a condition. If the amount is, let's say, 50,000, it's greater than 50,000, drop a message that okay, you cannot let's say withdraw this amount, right? So that means you have to generate your own exception. It can be something like a program where you have to just write a program for a voting mechanism where you say that if the age of the person is less than 21, then you stop the program and you give him a proper message that since your age was this, we are not going ahead with your thing, right? there would be always requirement where you would need to generate your own custom exception. This is required to enforce certain condition, use for custom validation, and it lastly makes our code more robust and easier to debug, right? So this is what we are going to explain in this video, that how we are going to raise the exception with raise. Okay, so again, the same thing, right? In case you are following this playlist, we are doing everything in a hands-on manner. So I would request you guys to please open your VS Code or any of the Python editor and follow along with me, so that you guys also have the same set of program which I am building. Okay, so I'll minimize this and let's go back to the VS Code. So I am back into the VS Code. So this is our exception handling program, try, except. All of this we have already discussed in the previous video, so I'll just go and close this, right? I'll go to the file explorer maybe, and I'll just create, sorry, not here, into the project, right? Into this project I will go and I'll create a new file, and I will call this as exception handling underscore raise dot py and hit enter, right? I'll just go here and put a comment that handling exception with raise, right? So this would be our agenda, right? Okay, so to get started with, let's start with very simple, right? The same example, try, right? I hope you understand now why we are writing this try. I say that I have a variable which is called result, and I say 10 divided by 0, right? This is what we were doing, right? And then I was telling the Python that you need to always have the except keyword, and wherever you say you get this error 0 divided by error, we were actually doing something like this, right? We are saying that print number is 0, right? So this we have already done, and we understood that this was working fine, right? But now sometime what might happen is that this code, if you see, right, 0 division error, this is something which is generated by Python itself, and this is not something which I have generated. Now today I have a requirement where I want to see whether the age of a person is less than 18 or not. If the person age is less than 18, then I want to raise a exception, right? Then I want to raise a exception by myself. How can I do that? That is where you would actually see a raise keyword, right? So this 0 division by 0 error, this was something which is called a system error, right? I'll just delete this. And now what I am going to do is, let's say I have a variable which is called age. Okay, I'll define the value of age as 20. Okay, now if the, I just say the condition, if the age is, let's say, less than 18, right, or maybe greater than 18, right? I'll just write it other way around. If the age is greater than 18, then I always forgot this colon. If the age is greater than 18, I just say print, I'll just say eligible to vote. However, if this guy is not 18, then usually in the else part we actually write that this is not eligible to vote, right? But that is not generating a error, that is just printing the message, right? Let me show that to you. I can go here and I say print not eligible to vote, right? And then I have some other program here, right? I'll just say print, and I'll just mention here something like more code that execute, right? So Simple program where we say that okay, the age is 20. If it is greater than 20, we say it is eligible to vote, and if it is, let's say, less than, then we say that it is not eligible to vote, right? But what happens here is, you might always say that Mukesh, I can always use if else condition. Why even this exception thing? And that's what I am trying to make you understand, right? Now if you see this, the age is 20. Let me just execute. You see it says eligible to vote, and whatever the more code was there, it actually executed. When it is something like 13, he is not eligible to vote, it says not eligible to vote, and more code also got executed, right? That means that this does not throw an exception, it is a proper thing. Now depending on your situation, sometime you would like to have one program where you say that when it is not eligible to vote, you want to stop the program and you want to throw a meaningful error to the message. That is again the part of exception handling, right? But what is happening here is, even in both the cases, when the age is not there, we are able to run this code. Now I want this code to not get executed. How do I control that? Right? That is where you are going to use this functions, which is called the raise function, right? Now what is happening here? When I say the age is greater than 18, I say okay, it's 18, well and good. But when it is not there, then instead of printing this guy, I am saying raise a exception, right? Now you say raise an exception. What exception? I say that I want to raise something which is called a value error. I am myself generating this exception which is called value error, and then I say that age must be more than 18. With this simple statement, now what is the difference? Now when the age is 18, sorry, not 18, I'll say 23 maybe, then you say eligible to vote, more code to execute, right? Happy path. But when it is 13, which is less, in that case you have generated the error yourself, which is called a value error, and whatever message you have given. In the previous exception handling, right, let me just open that for you, right, for comparison. In the previous exception handling, we used to see the output, and then from the output we used to handle this depending on what the program would generate, right? This was generated by the program. But with the raise, you are actually able to generate your own exception, and if you see here, it did not executed this guy, more code to execute, because it got an exception here, right? And again this exception was not handled, so that's why it didn't executed this. If you want it to execute, you can again put this complete thing in a try and a except block, and you can do all those stuff, right? So what is the benefit of using this guy? The benefit of using this guy is, now you can generate the own exception what you need, and with a message which you require, right? So this is nothing but a custom message, right? I'll save this and I run this. Now it says it's a custom message which is a value error. If I was not using the raise, I am again repeating, I am just opening a code from the previous videos, where when we use this guy, this except zero division error was something which the Python code gave me, right? I cannot generate a zero division error. Now if I today tell you guys that, hey guys, I want the automation itself or the program itself to generate an error which is zero division error, you cannot do that. But if I use this raise function, I can say, even if it is not eligible to vote, I say that I want you to raise a zero division error. Now if I run this, you see I am getting a zero division error, same like the program was generating, How cool is that, right? So that means that with the raise functionality, you can now raise your own custom error messages, and accordingly you can handle it, right? So in a real time scenario, how this code will look like, right? Let me just copy paste a code here for you guys, right, to better understand, right, that how does this code look like. I'll just do clean the canvas. I'll copy some code and I'll paste a code here. Okay, so this is the code I just copy pasted. You see here, this was a function, right? Let's try to understand the function. We had a function. That function was validating the age. The age is the input, right? This is a function. I hope you guys remember from the previous session, right? Now whatever age the user pass here, we are checking if the age is less than 18, we raise a error saying age is less than 18, and else we say age is valid. Now when you run this program, what would happen? We know that this code, which is this guy, can generate an exception. Which guy? Which is nothing but the function which is called validate age. So what we have done here is, in the try and except, whatever code can generate an exception, we have put it in the try, and in the catch, whatever error is coming, we are just printing that error with the help of a format exception, right? So this is how you actually would implement this guy in a bigger project, right? So what you will do is, you would have a function. In that function, wherever you want to raise an error, you would just use the raise function, and since it is raising an error, that means that this guy, this code is going to generate an error. Like if you compare this to this exception, this code was generating error, right? 10 divided by 0. That's why we put this in the try part. The same thing is happening here. This guy, we are generating an error, so we need to handle that error also. Now to handle that error, whenever you are calling this function, we are putting that into the try and the except, right? So both the concept, whatever you learned in the last session and this session, are combined together to give you this thing, right? So that's how you generate a custom error in Python, right? Now you might argue with me, right? Let me just delete this thing. Right? If I just go and now if I have this, I can say age is 16. I just run this program and I say that I get an error which says age is less than 18. But when the age is less than, let's say 45, I pass the 45, age validate functions, right? Age is valid, right? But if you see here, still I am generating something which is called a value error, which is again from the system, right? I generate, instead of the value error, I can always generate a zero division error, right? Now when I run this, it is going to handle this zero division error, and here instead of value error, I say zero division error. So now one thing you would realize here is that even when the developer is generating the error, it is still restricted to the errors which Python already have. Maybe I cannot put it something like Mukesh error, right? I cannot say to raise something which is called Mukesh error, right? Because there is no such error which exists called Mukesh error, right? So even though we are generating the errors, still the developer is restricted to use only the errors which Python can generate. We are still generating those error only. But sometime you have one more situation where you say that, hey, I do not want this zero division error or value error. I want my custom error, right? And that is also possible in Python, as I told, custom error. So instead of this thing, you just mention something which is called custom error, right? So custom exceptions can be also generated in Python, right? So all you have to do here is, you just have to write here custom error, right? And now I am saying that raise a custom error and handle the custom error, right? But again, that custom error is giving me some exception. So to do that, we need to actually tell Python that, hey Python, this custom error or this Mukesh error something, right? This is something which is of type exception, right? So for that, all you have to do is just create a class, right? We have not used the class yet, but just because this thing came, you have to use this thing. So I am telling Python that, hey, I am going to raise something which is called custom error. So now when this statement was not there, Python does not understand what is a custom error, right? So I just tell Python that, see, you have a class which is a custom error and which would be of exception type. So now it understand. Now instead of this custom error, I say, now I want to raise something which is called Mukesh error. And now instead of this custom error, I say raise Mukesh error whenever you find this, right? So now when this program will run, it will actually generate something which is called Mukesh error, right? Let's try that. I'll just copy this part and I'll remove this exception handling from here, right? So I say call the validate function with age which is 10, and now you see I am getting something which is called Mukesh error, right? So that means now as a developer, I am not restricted to use the errors which Python generates. I can generate own custom errors. So all you have to do is just you have to create a class, right? And you have to use this thing which is called the name, and then you have to pass the parameter which is exception, right? And then it create that class for you, right? When you wrote this, right, you might be thinking that, Mukesh, you have written something which is called pass, right? So what is the use of this pass, right? So the pass statement is a placeholder that does nothing, right? So all I am telling is that it is often for used to just put a placeholder that I do not want to execute any code inside it. Whatever you have, just pass it, right? Because I wanted to handle the exception in other ways, so that's why I just made the statement here pass. So I say whatever here is, I do not want to execute anything here, just say pass, right? I say pass, right? What is the purpose? The pass statement indicates that no additional functionality or attributes are added to the custom error class, which in case R is Mukesh error class. It is used here because the custom class, which is this guy, is intended to behave just like the base class, right? So how this exception is behaving, I'm just telling that this guy is also going to behave in a similar way. The only thing is I am just changing the name. So now whenever this code is executing, it is actually giving you the same error which I have given the name of, right? So this is the way you can utilize raise to generate the Python exception which is called system exception. You can generate business exception, or you can also generate something which is called custom exception. Okay. So I hope you guys were able to follow along and you created this same program with you as well, right? Now lastly, before I close this, I want to show you one more program which I have written, and this is also an assignment for you. Okay, so I have to write a program today where I want to check whether the number is greater than 100 or not, right? Very simple program. So what I did is I created a function, define check function number. If the number is greater than 100, I am raising a custom error which says number is too high, and in case it is less than 100, which say number is acceptable, right? And then this guy is generating a custom error, so that means that we need to define it as a class. So I say class custom error, which is this guy. What do you want it to behave? As an exception. I want to pass everything, so pass, right? And since this guy is generating exception, we have put try and accept, right? I want you guys to create these 12 lines of code on your Python editor, and that will give you very much clarity on how do you use the raise statement, right? I hope you got the assignment, and please let me know once you complete the assignment, right? So that is it pretty much I wanted to cover in this video. Any more questions, any more doubts, feel free to write me in the comments, or you can also drop me an email as well, right? So with this, I would like to wrap this video here. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video of Python series.